There's a stretch of ocean out there, clear blue, postcard perfect, where things go quiet in ways they shouldn't. Compasses falter, radios die, and sometimes people vanish so cleanly it feels like they were edited. We called it the Bermuda Triangle, and for a while, back in the 80s, 90s, it was our favorite kind of fear. Mysterious enough to feel possible, close enough to touch. But what happens when you stop believing in it? And then, you find yourself right in the middle of it. Welcome to Dust and Echoes. My name is James Cawley, and every week I bring you a new, original story. Tales built from that flickering space between memory, dream, and the places we try not to look at too long. If you enjoy these stories, do me a favor. Leave a rating and a comment. It really does help me more than you know. Tonight we set out on a family vacation. A cruise ship headed south through gentle seas. Kids in goggles. Pancakes on plastic plates. All of it perfectly ordinary. Until something rises from below the waterline. This is a story about disconnection. About the patterns only some of us can see. And about the moment you realize the strange thing out there has already noticed you. I call this story the Bermuda Meridian. We begin not with fear, but with the quiet pressure that knows it's coming. He woke up certain something had stopped. No sound, no motion, just that dense underwater stillness that only happened in hospitals and locked cars in winter, where the air turned heavy and every breath felt like trespass. Garrett didn't open his eyes at first. He just listened. The ship should have been humming, shifting, breathing. But for one long, strange second, the Celestia Maris felt like it wasn't there at all. Then came a soft, metallic groan from the hull. Pipes clicked somewhere in the wall. A child cried 2 rooms down. The world restarted. He opened his eyes and squinted at the stripe of sunlight bleeding through the blackout curtains. The glow had that shipboard flavor, thin, overexposed, salt-glazed. It cut across the carpet in a perfect blade, landing on the twin bed across from his, where Levi lay twisted in his sheets, mouth open, one sock hanging off his foot like it had tried to escape in the night. Garrett sat up too fast and winced. Pain threaded through the back of his neck and into his left temple, dull and familiar. A tension spike. Nothing new. "Daddy?" A voice mumbled from somewhere lower. "Hannah," curled on the pull-out cot near the door. "Are we at the island yet?" "Not yet, baby." He rubbed the stiffness from his shoulder, listening to the faint whir of ceiling ventilation and the rhythm of the ship beneath them. Mara stepped out of the bathroom in a navy swimsuit and long linen shirt, towel-wrapped hair piled high. Her glasses fogged as she opened the balcony door, letting in a gust of humid morning air that made everything smell like sun-heated salt. "Still moving," she said, checking her phone. "But we're running a little behind. Captain's message just came through. Some kind of current drift overnight." He stood, letting the blood settle before moving. "Nothing serious?" "Nope. Just said we'll dock late in Turks and Caicos." She looked at him. "You okay? You look zoned. Just didn't sleep?" "You never sleep." Garrett didn't answer. He moved past her to the balcony, squinting at the horizon. The ocean was too perfect. That was the trouble. It lay out flat and sparkling in all directions, like a set piece stretched to the edges of the sky. Not a single wave broke the surface. No other ships, no birds, no landmarks. Just the ship, the quiet, and the deep blue. He stared longer than he meant to. "Didn't sleep or didn't stop thinking?" Mara asked behind him, softer this time. "You've been distracted." He turned, leaned against the railing. "It's a floating city full of children and sunburns. I'm adjusting." "Uh-huh." She crossed the room, her hand brushing his arm as she passed. "Well, Get adjusted quick. Your daughter wants pancakes, and your son's threatening to wear swim goggles to the buffet. They ate late, outside on the covered rear deck, far from the kids' section, but close enough to still hear the annoying Cartoon Shark theme song played on repeat, blasting from the ship's speaker system. Levi inhaled waffles like he was storing for winter. Hannah methodically picked the blueberries off her plate and lined them up in strict rows. Garrett watched the ocean. "It's kind of creepy, isn't it?" he said aloud, not realizing he was speaking until Mara looked up. "What is?" He gestured to the water. "This much nothing." She followed his gaze and squinted. "You're the one who chose this cruise." "I know." "You said you wanted quiet." "I do." She sipped her iced coffee, then stopped trying to find ghosts in the sea. He smiled without meaning to. They spent the morning by the midship pool. Garrett read on his tablet, half focused on a paper about transient visual disturbances, following microvascular ischemia. It was dry even by his standards. The sun glared too hard off the screen. He rubbed his eyes. Pressure. Left side. He looked at the water again. Still no birds. Not one, not all morning. When he brought it up to Mara, she waved it off. "You're doing the pattern thing again. Try not to predict the end of the world until after lunch." He tried. He really did. That night, after the kids passed out watching some half-pixelated cartoon on the cabin TV and Mara slipped into the bathroom to brush her teeth, Garrett stepped barefoot out onto the balcony. It was warm, but the wind had teeth. The sea had gone flat again, the way it only did miles from land. Above him, stars dusted the sky like static. The ship's wake spread out like a white gash behind them. He stared, not expecting anything, just letting the quiet in. That's when he saw it, low on the horizon, left of center, a dark sphere, hovering above the waterline, perfectly still. It didn't reflect the ship's lights, didn't shimmer. It was matte and wrong and ancient, covered in long green-black strands that looked like seaweed or roots. Water dripped from it steadily, like it had just been pulled from the bottom of something far too deep. Garrett blinked. It didn't vanish. It remained, motionless, watching. He took one step back, then another, and his hand found the sliding glass door. "Mara?" His voice was hoarse. "Mara, come here. Bring my phone." Behind him, the sink turned off. A shuffle. The door opened. Mara appeared, toothbrush in her mouth, phone in hand. He turned, and the sea was empty. No sphere, no roots, no sound but the ship. Just waves, breathing in the dark. He stood there, breath tight. She looked past him. "Garrett," she said around the toothbrush, "please tell me you didn't drag me out here for a flying saucer." Garrett stood alone on the balcony long after Mara had gone back inside, brushing him off with a muttered joke and a kiss to the shoulder. But the joke had landed heavy this time. It stayed. His eyes traced every ripple on the ocean, every flicker of moonlight. He replayed the moment again and again. How still it had been. Not just visually, but sonically. The ship's wake had no effect. No wind passed. It didn't bob or hum. It was like the thing had replaced gravity. Now there was only the sound of water lapping at the steel hull and the faint mechanical moan of the cruise ship, continuing its endless glide. He finally came back inside just before 1 a.m. Mara was already asleep, curled toward the edge of the bed in the same shape she used when he was away at conferences. A little retreat of her body. He sat in the corner chair with his phone, trying to find language for what he'd seen. No power lines, no support. Silent. Symmetrical. Rough-surfaced, dripping, stationary. The words felt wrong, too vague, too flat. Nothing captured the presence of it. He Googled UAP over water. Then ball lightning, though he already knew it wasn't that. Then finally, shamefully, Bermuda Triangle metallic sphere. He clicked the screen off. By morning, he'd half convinced himself it had been a dream. He joined Mara and the kids at the buffet, where everything was sticky and overlit, and smelled faintly of overripe melon. Hannah demanded French toast. Levi begged for a second chocolate milk before the first one was finished. Garrett poured black coffee and didn't drink it. There are a lot of these ships, he muttered, more to himself. Mara arched an eyebrow. Cruise ships. Passing through this area, the Triangle. Thousands every year. She nodded slowly, lifting a spoonful of yogurt. Yes. That's kind of the point of the vacation industry. The actual heart of it, it's not as well trafficked. There's a patch near the Sargasso Sea where maritime traffic thins out. Insurance risk models, bad weather patterns, just superstition mostly. She didn't take the bait. She just watched him chew on his thumbnail, something he hadn't done since med school. Garrett, she said softly, there's nothing out there but water. He glanced toward the massive windows that overlooked the stern, and then he saw them, 3 of them, floating low across the far horizon. Not moving exactly, but drifting in perfect silent formation. Each the same size, each the same matte black finish. No sound, no light, just presence. They were closer than last night's. His body moved before his thoughts caught up. He stood, knocking his chair back, and pointed. There, right there, look, Mara, look at them. Other diners turned their heads, startled. He bolted for the glass, pressing both hands and his phone up against it. His breath fogged the pain. They're right there, just past the wake. Don't you see them? Mara came up beside him slowly. People were watching now. Garrett, she said carefully, there's nothing there. No, they're right there. He fumbled with his phone, switched to video. Look at them. Look at how the water falls off of them. Do you see that? The way it drips, like they're rising out of the... A few guests had stood to look. A man wearing a sports jersey with the image of a gator on it. An older woman holding a mimosa, a kid on a stool. But after a long moment, they all sat down again. Mara's hand touched his shoulder gently, firmly. Garrett, she said, you're scaring people. He replayed the video 3 times in a row before he realized what he was looking at. Or rather, what he wasn't looking at. Ocean. Horizon. Light. Nothing else. No spheres. No dripping water. No distortion. Just blue. But he'd been there. He'd seen them. His hands were still trembling. He didn't go back to the table. Didn't finish breakfast. He walked the length of the ship's outer deck 3 times. Nothing on the water, no shapes, no shadows. He tried to imagine what he would say to a patient who came in describing the same thing. He tried to summon that calm, distant part of himself. But the truth was, he didn't feel detached. He felt watched. 2 hours later, a soft chime played over the ship's intercom. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Captain Elias. I have a brief update regarding our travel schedule. Due to a medical emergency involving one of our younger guests, we'll be altering course slightly to rendezvous with medical personnel off the coast of Freeport. We're currently several hours from the nearest full-service port, and this change will allow us to provide the best possible care as quickly as possible. A pause. Then the voice again, soothing and practiced. We appreciate your understanding as we make this adjustment. All scheduled activities remain unaffected at this time. Garrett stood frozen in the hallway, mid-step. Mara caught up with him. Well, she said, there's your Bermuda Triangle. We're going through it now. He stared past her, toward the rows of windows, showing that same flat ocean, only now thicker. A faint veil of mist had begun to settle across the sea, like breath on a lens. Garrett could feel the entire ship turning towards a new direction, crosswaves crashing against the hull in an unfamiliar way. They were heading due west now, instead of south, towards the island. He knew they would be headed into waters that cruise ships rarely entered. The ship began crossing the heart of the Bermuda Triangle. Myth or no myth, these waters were not traveled often. "I need to find out where the medical wing is," he said. "What? Why?" He turned. "Because if it's neurological, they'll need me." Garrett made his way down Deck 4, past the casino and the silent art gallery, until he reached the small medical center near the crew-only bulkhead. The walls had changed here. No more faux wood panels or ocean blue carpeting, just steel, beige paint, and the quiet pulse of refrigeration units. He showed his ID at the door, his real one, not the cruise pass. Dr. Garrett Goodwin, MD Neurosurgery, Utah Brain Center. Garrett explained to the nurse that he was a specialist and could help. The tired nurse just looked at him and picked up a landline phone. He mumbled something and nodded to the person he was talking to, the ship's doctor, most likely. He led Garrett through a door labeled Staff Only, with peeling letters, and into a narrow, windowless clinic that smelled like cold plastic and iodine. Inside, a boy, 15, maybe 16, pale, unconscious, small frame, blood dried at the hairline. A female medic, early 30s, stood beside the cot reviewing vitals on a portable monitor that beeped in a rhythm Garrett found instantly wrong. Too fast, then too slow, then normal again. Arrhythmia or glitch? "Head trauma?" Garrett asked, donning gloves before they offered. "Yes. He had a bad fall down an exterior stairwell. Witness says he lost consciousness before falling, passed out, and just fell, head first, like he just turned himself off all of a sudden." That caught Garrett's attention as he began to lean in to inspect the boy. "No seizure activity?" "None obvious, but he's been unconscious since he came in." Garrett did not say anything, but he was glad he came down here. If the doctor thought he could only have a seizure when he was awake, he wondered if they would have even seen the signs of one. Garrett motioned towards the overhead lights. "Can you please turn these off?" The nurse standing near the entry hesitated. Garrett didn't repeat himself. The doctor nodded approval. Lights dimmed. He stepped closer. The boy's eyes were closed, the breathing shallow, colorless lips. Garrett crouched beside the cot, clicked on the pen light, and lifted one eyelid. The boy's chest rose, then stopped, then rose again. Something about the rhythm, like it wasn't the boy breathing, but something breathing through him. He leaned closer. So close he could smell something metallic under the antiseptic. Not blood, not sweat. His lips parted to ask another question when the boy's eyes opened. Not fully, just a slit. But enough. The irises weren't dilated. They were locked, focused. On Garrett. Garrett froze. The boy's mouth moved. No breath, just a slow, unnatural opening of the jaw. Then sound. A voice, but not the boy's, came from the open mouth. His lips did not move. A voice too low, too static heavy, too wrong. "We are watching you." The lights flickered on, then back off. Garrett did not take his eyes off the boy. Then the boy's mouth closed slowly, like an old garage. Alarms began to chirp on the medical monitor. The nurse leaned in to inspect. "His vitals are sporadic. No change in BP, must have been a..." But Garrett was already stepping back. He walked fast, past the staff door, past the silent art, past the elevators, into the hallway where he started running at a pace he hadn't managed since college. He bumped into people as he ran through the narrow halls. He didn't care. He had to get back to his room at the far end of the ship. His legs didn't feel connected to the floor. Sweating, he made it to his cabin, and his hands shook so much that he couldn't get the card to open the door. Mara opened the door from the inside. She was still looking at her tablet. "You were gone a while." Garrett's mouth moved before he could control it. "He spoke to me." She looked up and could see something was very wrong by the look on her typically calm husband's face. She set the tablet down, alarmed. "Who spoke to you?" "The boy, the one who fell. He woke up and... Garrett stopped. He didn't wake up. It wasn't him. We need to get off this damn ship. Garrett, she said slowly. What's happening? I don't know. He sat down hard on the edge of the bed. His fingers twitched and he ran them through his hair, and then began to pull at it. His left arm felt numb. No, not numb. Buzzing. That deep internal vibration, like a limb fallen asleep, but worse. Like something under the skin was trying to move the wrong direction. I'm not okay, he whispered. Then we should go back to medical. No, it's not physical. He shook his head, then regretted it instantly. It's the orbs, Mara. I know it sounds crazy, and they are out there. Mara went very still. You're scaring me. Good. We need to be scared right now. Something is very, very wrong. He looked up at her. His eyes were wide and childlike, in a way that she had never seen. Suddenly, the lights dimmed and turned off without warning. Then the intercom came on. Captain Elias again, but his voice was no longer practiced and composed. This time it came across live, rushed and strained. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. We're experiencing a temporary systems failure related to our onboard power relay. Emergency lighting and core systems are unaffected. We ask that you stay in your cabins until further notice while we investigate. Garrett stood. Mara gripped the bedpost. Where are you going? You heard the captain? He didn't know. He just felt trapped. His children, occupied by their tablets, had not noticed his panic before. Now that the lights went out, they noticed. Because now, outside the cabin, everything was quiet. The entire ship seemed soundless. No engines, no sounds of laughter or talking, just a pure, cold silence. Then came the sound of the sea. Suddenly, as if the volume was turned up sharply, the sound outside was louder than it had any right to be. Volumetric, and he could feel the sound pressing against the hull, like a hand trying to crush a can. Garrett crossed to the glass balcony door. Out beyond the ship, a wall of an unnatural fog approached. Thick, greenish, moving the wrong way like it was being pulled upward from the ocean. He didn't speak, didn't blink. He just stared and whispered, Mara, we're here. Garrett pressed his forehead to the glass. Something about that fog made him want to seal the door with tape to keep it outside. It wasn't right in a way he could not define. The fog outside wasn't drifting or rolling. It stood, thick and unnaturally vertical, curling skyward like something exhaled it from below. The sea beneath was smothered in it, choked green, dead calm. The world beyond the balcony had collapsed to 50 feet of visibility. The Celestia Maris floated in a bowl of green milk. Behind him, Mara muttered something under her breath, and the kids cried. He didn't turn around. He couldn't turn around. He saw something. Just beyond the fog line, something moved. It didn't sail or fly. It just shifted slowly. A shape, massive and curved, gliding like a mountain underwater. No lights, no sound, not a ship, not a whale, just mass, hidden by the haze. Then it stopped. And Garrett felt something in his chest, like his heartbeat wanted to leave. Mara, he said quietly, we need to go. What? Why? Garrett, what the hell is happening? Emergency floor lighting, thin red strips at the baseboards, kicked on, casting their room in a low, infernal glow. From the hallway, nothing. No footsteps. No voices. The kids started to cry. Garrett turned away from the glow of the fog outside, silhouetted by its churning mass in the balcony window. He looked at his wife. Everyone, get your shoes on. She hesitated. Why? Because when the power goes out on a ship like this, you don't wait to see what happens next. We need to get to the top deck. That wasn't entirely true, but it was the only thing he could say to not scare them more. Levi sat up. He was crying. "I want to go home now. I don't want to be on this ship anymore." "It's okay," Garrett said, kneeling. "We're just going up to the deck, buddy. Family adventure." "Is it pirates?" Hannah whispered. "No," he said. "It's just a little fog." He knew it wasn't. But how could he explain to his children how bad this situation could be? So he lied. The main corridor outside their cabin was empty. Other guests were starting to open doors, heads poking out like curious birds from darkened cages. Garrett held his family close, moving them down the hallway with purpose, simply nodding at anyone who stared too long or asked the same question. "Do you know what's happening?" "Deck access should still be open," he said. "We need to take the stairwell. Elevators are not going to be working with the power out." As they climbed, the silence thickened. At Deck 9, he paused by a white phone bolted to the wall. He picked it up. Dead. He turned on his phone. No signal, no onboard Wi-Fi. Then Mara's voice. "I'm not getting anything either." By the time they reached the open deck, the air had changed. It felt electric, static heavy. The kind of atmosphere that made tooth fillings hum. Dozens of people had gathered already. A few officers and ship staff were on the far side of the rail, murmuring into radios that didn't seem to work. One man was crying. Another recorded the fog on a phone with shaking hands. The sea was entirely still. So still it looked fake. Garrett stepped to the railing, off the port side. Nothing. He then heard commotion and crossed to the stern side. That's when he saw it. A shape emerging. Another cruise ship. It was coming out of the fog, slowly moving towards them. His stomach rolled and his knees shook. It was not just another ship. It was their ship. He stared at the name painted on the side. Faded, but legible. Celestia Maris. Identical. Same design. Same upper deck slide. Same logo on the hull. But this one was ancient. Corroded. Covered in dark, wet vines. Windows blacked out with filth and mold. No movement on board. No people. Just a hollow reflection of their ship. The Celestia Maris, as though it had slipped ahead in time and rotted for ages. Someone screamed. Then came a sound. Not a horn, not an engine, a deep, hollow beep. Low. Subsonic. Almost beautiful in its simplicity. It seemed to come from everywhere. It rattled his chest cavity. Garrett flinched. His teeth buzzed. His vision blurred with the vibration. He looked back towards his family, struggling to turn and keep his eyes open. They were gone. Beep. The noise cut through thought. People covered their ears. A woman collapsed near the bar. A man screamed for the captain. No one came. Then, louder, deeper, inside the bones now. Garrett dropped to a knee, screaming. Garrett looked up at the rotting twin ship through wet, blurry eyes. Up on its bridge, movement amongst the rot. A shape. It was the boy. His mouth was wide open. Unnaturally wide open. That's when he realized the loud sounds, the ones that sounded like foghorns rotted with decay and darkness, was coming from the mouth of the boy. The boy thing tilted its head and waved at Garrett. He slammed into the deck, face first. The world turned sideways. The sky blinked. Everything went white. He started to regain consciousness. A square of intense white light burned through Garrett's eyelids. It wasn't sunlight, though. It was too white. Too sterile. He tried to speak. Nothing came. His lips did not even move. There was a rhythm all around him. Mechanical. Steady. Beep. 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 He opened his eyes. He did not see the sky. He saw the ceiling, covered in white acoustic tiles. Fluorescent tubes. Vents humming. He slowly was able to turn his head. Only half of it responded. The left side of his face was slack. It felt numb, foreign. Blinking the water from his eyes, he now saw wires attached to him going into his skin. Then as his vision cleared, an IV, the edge of a monitor. A plastic pitcher with condensation on the side. A hospital. Clean. Cold. Quiet. The smell of disinfectant pressed at his nose like a hand. Someone moved in the room above him, very close. "Dr. Goodwin?" a voice asked gently. It seemed very far away, as if speaking from the other side of a tunnel. "If you can hear me, squeeze my hand." He tried, a twitch, faint, but there. "Oh my God," another voice said, cracking open with emotion. Female. Familiar. "Oh God, Garrett? Thank you, God." Mara peered slowly into his view, her eyes puffy, mouth trembling in a way he'd only seen once before in their long marriage, on the day they lost the baby, many years ago, when the ultrasound room went silent. "Garrett, can you hear me?" "Honey, you had a stroke," she said softly. "The ship had a minor power failure and you rushed us up onto the deck. You just screamed. You screamed so loud and then just fell onto the floor." He blinked. Once. She took his hand, held it like she meant it. "I thought we lost you. You've been here 3 days. They had to do a medical evacuation on a helicopter. We didn't know if you were coming back." Garrett opened his mouth. Nothing. Not sound, not breath. Just the horrible sensation of intention collapsing inside his own skull. She nodded, instantly knowing what he wanted to say. She tried to smile. "The kids are okay," she said. "They're with my sister. She flew in to help." He closed his eyes. But he didn't feel safe. He felt unfinished, like something had been interrupted mid-sentence. It was night when he woke again. Mara was asleep in the chair, head cocked, arms folded, one shoe off. The room glowed faintly from the monitor's screen. Garrett stared at the ceiling. He couldn't move much, but he could turn his head, just barely, toward the window. Outside, he could see the slow sway of palm trees under moonlight, a parking lot. And there, past the glass, beyond the pale wash of parking lot lights, he saw something else. The heart monitor started to beep faster. He gurgled and pressed back against his pillow. Out in the distance, where the waves crashed into the sand past the tourist strip mall, he could see something watching. A small dark shape in the sky, perfectly round, still, unmoving. He watched it for a long time. It didn't blink, didn't shift, just hung there, and squinting he could see water pouring from the sphere. He tried to speak, tried to point. He could not move. And in the hum of machines and the sterile stillness of the room, he finally understood. It hadn't followed him. It had always been there, inside him, waiting, growing. He'd spent his entire lifetime diagnosing others, naming the test results out loud, revealing the shadows they feared most in their minds, doing his job well with certainty and skill. But this one, the dark shadow in his own mind, it didn't want a name. It only wanted to be seen, to be acknowledged. And now it was. That was the Bermuda Meridian, written and performed by the author, me, James Cawley. Some stories don't ask to be explained. They just wait, quietly, until someone's willing to look at them too long. Maybe you felt it, that eerie quiet when you're far from land, or that sense that something isn't watching you from the outside, but from just behind your own thoughts. What happened on that ship? What Garrett saw, or thought he saw. It isn't just about vanishing ships or folklore. It's about what happens when the part of your mind that keeps you tethered begins to fray, and what might be waiting just beyond that unraveling. My name is James Cawley, and you're listening to Dust and Echoes. If you like stories like this, stories that reach back into the strange, magnetic corners of memory, stories that tangle the real with the imagined until you're not sure which one you're walking through, well, you're in the right place. I'm glad we found you. Make sure to check out our YouTube channel, where I bring some of these stories to life visually. You can find a direct link on our website at enterthedust.com. Until next time, remember this: some mysteries don't need to be explained. They just want to be remembered.